Hello, and welcome to another episode of ohmTown on Twitch. Like every episode, I want to introduce you to the site that provides all of the news and why it exists. I was asked a while ago what ohmTown was. ohmTown is a little bit of resistance in the wire, and that resistance is all of the information being funneled into a single site. That's the idea behind what ohmTown is. But what it does is it gathers a multitude of news sources. I'm not sure how many it is, but it's growing periodically. And it gets funneled into 6 categories. These 6 categories are create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. And when I do one of these shows, it's basically me going through the news and riffing off of the news as it comes in, and perhaps giving context. Otherwise, kind of stoking your interests, the fires of interest in the material that we're looking at, right? So something like Apple's M1 MacBook Air dips to $899 during Amazon's January Mac sale. MacBook Air is a great laptop. I've got one, and the M1 is extremely powerful. I'm sure all of that is old news now, but I would suggest taking a look at it. And if you're in academia, you can actually get you can get a discount via the academic site for Apple. Not everybody can get it. You have to be a student or faculty or in academia in some way. But that's just a side note. I've been kind of noodling around with my audio. I tested it. I'm hoping that it isn't too loud. Again, I monitored it at a different way, or in a different way than right now. So hopefully it's not too loud, because I don't control the mic anymore, at least audio wise. So today is January 17th, 2022. Today's news is basically a sentiment of the news that has been going around the world from this multitude of sites that I ingest information from. And as you will probably see, a lot of it has to do with Martin Luther King Day and or MLK Day. And that's what today is. It's the holiday for MLK. And birthday was a few days ago, but the day is applied today. Now, I probably won't get too into it, mainly because there's so much being said about it that I think that if you are watching this VOD, you've probably seen quite a bit of news. If you are interested in my perspective, then feel free to ask it in chat, or come to another show and say, hey, what do you think of this or that? But for now, let's just keep on rolling. Pardon me 1 second. Yeah, I'm not sure why my throat is getting scratchy when I do my shows, but I'm working on it. So as you can see from the front page, there is a multitude of news items, and they go into these different categories. Mobile is a site about mobile news, basically, built initially for a project called Mobile, but it was the mobile mob. People would be able to report news into a central repository, similar to how Twitter or Facebook or other kind of social networks would gather their information, but a smaller community that was more focused on certain topics. It didn't come into fruition, so I rolled it into ohmTown as an area of interest for later on, but it has a broad spectrum of news sources that ingest information into it. So come on over to ohmTown.com, sign up, become a citizen. I'm going to go to the front page. Really sorry for the cough and the scratchy throat. So depending on when you come into ohmTown, you will see a different set of news bits. And I've taken from this an array of news. So this is an interesting one that just popped into this. So the Pine Phone Pro brings upgraded hardware to the Linux phone. Now, I don't look at the news. I just talk about it as I'm reading it. And to build a mainline Linux phone, maybe mainstream Linux phone. A Linux phone is pretty edge case. You have to be pretty sophisticated in your understanding of technology, of Linux to be specific. So I would be interested in it. Its capabilities, I would have to noodle around with to see if it matches what I'm looking for. But I can imagine that a Linux phone that is capable of having additional Linux software sideloaded into it would be an amazingly powerful tool in cybersecurity, for instance. That way you wouldn't need a laptop or even a tablet. You could just use your phone. Now, I haven't even seen it, so let's go to the source. This is from Ars Technica. And I encourage you, if you see my VOD, you will always hear me say, I want you to go to ohmTown.com and see the news. It's funneled into very specific areas. And if you find news bits that you are interested in, click the link to go see the source. It'll always have it. Visit the source. And then find out about what everybody else is writing about. I think this is Ron Amadeo. And the Pine 64 is launching a major hardware upgrade on its quest to build a Linux smartphone. The original was launched in 2019. But you can buy the upgraded one apparently for $399. Now it could be great. Let's go click on the link to go over to it. And this is what it looks like. Now, this is pretty standard fare for a phone nowadays. So I might actually end up getting it just so that I can see if it has much more utility than a regular phone. A regular phone can't do everything that I want. It's just not built to. An iPhone certainly can't. Android phones definitely can. They act more like Linux to begin with, but Android is very capable as long as you accept the risks that are associated with it. When you start tweaking things, tweaking one thing can tweak something else, and then you're tweaked out of control and maybe compromising your own device. But if you're careful and you do your due diligence, you should be just fine with an Android phone. Linux phone's probably going to be a little bit more difficult, but I haven't noodled around with them, so maybe I'll get it and use it for a while and see what's up. But that's the Pine Phone Pro. We'll see. So are you looking for a new phone? If you are, a Linux phone might be where it's at. So under Breaking Pros, there's a site called ProWritingAid.com, and they always have tidbits of information that I aggregate because I'm interested in writing and writers and short stories in particular, but world building in general based on a short story is pretty interesting to me. So they describe, a stream of consciousness, what is it, and how to use. And when you click the link, it'll take you over to the site, and it'll describe to you what a stream of consciousness is. And it's basically writing down what you think about. And it's very close to associative thinking in that one thought leads to another thought, leads to another thought. And like it says, stream of consciousness writing can be frustrating for many readers because the storytelling doesn't flow in a logical manner. And just like the associative thinking, it may come across as not being a congruent thought, right? It's disjointed. It seems herky-jerky in how you get to your rationale for it, but there's usually some elements that allow you to flow it together. But stream of consciousness is quite a fun tool to deploy when you are writing, particularly if you have writer's block, because you just write what you are thinking regardless of what it is. And you might be able to break through. So check it out. Go to ohmTown, click on Breaking Pros. That's this link right there. And then you'll be taken to the discussion boards where you'll be able to, you'll be taken to discussions where you'll be able to talk about all kinds of stuff. When you click on it, there's quite a few things to talk about. There's one here called Proofreading Guide for Beginners, an in-depth walkthrough of this career. If you are a writer, find somebody you trust and have them read your material. Have them proofread it. Find somebody that is good at grammar, good at the English language. They don't have to be good at writing, but they should be good at the English language to pull you out of the hole that you might dig. I hope I'm not too loud. I'm quite a few inches away from my mic, but I'm still hitting pretty high on my meter. So if you hear this, let me know if I'm blowing out my mic. Something might have changed. Anyway, the word in tech. Today we find out Jared Kushner floated the idea of a federal cryptocurrency, which is pretty ironic, considering cryptocurrency's intent is to decentralize the currency. And it largely makes it untraceable, although I suppose you can program in tracking. But my worldview about certain things is that, and I've said this in other VODs, abuse happens in the dark. If you are hiding a bunch of stuff, chances are there might be something nefarious going on. And so I'm not saying that you should be out there exposing everything to everyone, but and normally I would say everything after the but is a mistake. But when investigations take place into these things, there's always some way that somebody is abusing this. And I'm not talking about cryptocurrency. I'm just talking about whatever this is. It just like the housing in 2000 collapse in 2008, there was predatory lending, even in student loans. In housing, there's predatory practices in so many places where things are arcane and hidden and masked behind an air of privacy, yet certain people are beholden to the rules and regulations, but others are not. There's always something. So follow the money, follow the power, follow the influence, and you usually end up peeling back layers of an onion to find the true context of whatever it is that's going on. And a federal cryptocurrency really doesn't do anything different than our current currency, in that it will ultimately be consolidated by the ultra rich and virtually generating more revenue than the application of it. It's hard for me to explain this without kind of digging deep into currency, but the whole, if you're I don't want to get too deep into this, but let's just say that there is a whole lot of money that's making money, and by the way, if somebody wants to, if the world starts to collapse and people make a run on this virtual currency, it's impossible, really. The only people that will get their money out are the fastest of the bunch, because virtual currency is pegged to real dollars, and virtual currency will be worthless except for the people who believe that it will be persistent after a collapse. So some people, like when the Bitcoin trend kicked off and then it collapsed again, people bowed out because the risk is too high. Just today, it dropped almost $1,000 in value. It used to be at 60,000 and now it's at 45 or 48. I'm not sure what it is. But there's a whole lot of risk there. But the thing that really stabilizes it is that it's pegged to the US dollar. And so if people get to a certain point, let's say they have 1,000 Bitcoin, they could dump out of Bitcoin altogether and get cash, trade that money for some value trade that Bitcoin for some value of US dollars, and then invest that US dollar in something that is a little bit more stabilized. You can buy, you can acquire stock or funds that are, 3 to 8%, or something that is a little bit higher. It has higher risk, but it's ahead of inflation and not as rocky. Well, that money just sits there and it's making money. Money makes more money, but it's not being utilized anywhere. It might get loaned out. It might, whatever. It does get utilized, but that valuation, that amount of money has to be fulfilled when somebody makes a call to say, I want all of my money out of that bank. You have to either transfer it out electronically, or you have to fulfill it by putting, $40 million on a pallet and throw it in a truck and drive it to the next bank, or put it under your bed, whatever it is. But that money is owned by somebody. Well, cryptocurrency doesn't have that. You can't print it out and say you own it. It is an electronic currency that is just sitting there. And unless somebody is making interest off of it, then it's just sitting there and it's just dead weight. And there's a whole lot more to it. But my point is, money that begets money isn't money that's of value to society. It is value to the person that owns it. And you might, I guarantee you, a lot of people have a different perspective on it. But they typically it is, well, the money is getting loaned out, so it's being used for something. Well, there's more money not being, well, I can't say that. There's the expectation is that money that's loaned out is going to be making money. So the bank is making an interest, and in the totality of money changing hands from the person that has the money through the bank, through the lender, through whoever, the various steps, everybody wants a piece of that action. And so you end up looking at somebody's credit history and off of that saying, this is what you're going to have to end up paying in interest. And interest is what drives prices up. Everybody having to get a piece of the action, and there's 15 middle people in between, means that there's going to be an extraordinarily higher rate. There might be just one person and they're willing to take the risk, and therefore, it's 22% interest. But it all depends on how and what and where and the context of what ultimately we are going to be talking about, should you come back and want to talk to me about it. But suffice it to say that money invested isn't necessarily money that's doing anything for society so much as it's doing something for the investor. And I'm not taking that away from anybody. I'm just stating that that's kind of how it works. Just because you invest doesn't mean that that's doing some great good, other than for yourself, barring, what else you do with the money. I'm just trying to say that everything isn't just invest and everything is fine. There's a lot of things that are going on in the world that money alone isn't going to solve. But that's coming from somebody that doesn't have millions sitting in the bank. Okay. Well, I don't think a federal cryptocurrency really is the embodiment of what anybody really wants. I would imagine crypto miners are looking at that askance, as well. What does the federal government have to do with anything? Yeah. I mean, just think about Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, right? That person, which apparently nobody has been able to identify, retained a large sum of crypto currency. Hold on, let me see how much it was. Let me see. So there are apparently 2 Bitcoin wallets that are associated with Nakamoto, and they hold 980,000 Bitcoin. So let's see, 980,000. Yeah, so the cash of Bitcoin that is still owned by Nakamoto is worth just shy of, well, it's over $41 billion. Yeah, that's quite a large sum of money for something that's just been idling. And it's all built on the idea that this is going to either increase or decrease in value based on the adoption of Bitcoin. And when it first started out, it was worth a fraction of a penny. And now it's worth $42,205 as of today. It went down $894 per Bitcoin. So, but again, like I've been saying, it's pegged to the US dollar. So cryptocurrency is useless unless it's adopted. Bitcoin just happens to be the first mover and adopted, and there's engagement. So people are enhancing everything associated with Bitcoin. Making better wallets, making better transaction options, more adoption by retailers, currency exchanges, trading platforms. And that one's really weird, trading platforms and currency, but you can make money trading from one to another. So enough of that. We'll continue on with the news. If you've never heard of Blazeball, you might want to take a look at it. So Blazeball is basically a virtualized game wherein baseball teams are competing, and there are stats and data that nobody sees in their totality, right? You get certain things that are quantified, a whole lot of qualifiers about how a player might play or a team might play. But it is quite fun to engage in, and it's really no risk. I mean, unless you actually put real money into it, there's no risk here. It's just pure fun. But apparently there is an idea to bring Blazeball to the tabletop in the form of a card game. And it might be fun to play. It will be interesting when it comes out. So I'll end up getting it because I like card games. As long as they're kind of easygoing and not overly complex to the point where it's highly competitive and complex. I mean, these simple card games are a lot of fun to play at the drop of a hat and just sit down and play for 30 minutes or 45 minutes and not turn it into Gloomhaven or the Rise and Fall. There's a lot of games out there that run forever. Monopoly, right? Even Monopoly is a long game. At any rate, check out Blazeball. It's a lot of fun. And let me see if I'll take you to the site. And you can always listen to it by going to pcgamer.com. That's the origin of the site, or of the news. And I'm going to click this Blazeball, the card game. It'll take me to Blazeball, the card game. So it might be news to others and not news to still more, but I had not heard of this until today. So, but Blazeball itself is a lot of fun. And again, it's harmless. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. It just takes your time. And you should check it out. Happy to discuss it in chat too if you have questions about it. I've played it for a while, but stopped playing it last year sometime. It's really for people who are into stats and there's a bit of randomness there. You really don't know what the turnout is going to be. But after a good 5 or 6 seasons, you have a good idea of the percentages. The number of wins from your historical records will pretty much dictate what somebody else is going to do or how the results are going to play out. At least that was my experience with it, but it's still fun. So Of the Brew is a group that's dedicated to brewing, so beer primarily. And it says our mutual friend Brewing wins 12th annual Good Food Awards. So you can always click the link that's in each article. The Full Pint is the source of this. And go and check it out, and then come on back to the chat and talk about it. I've brewed beer periodically over the years, and it's always turned out great. I've never had any bottle explosions. I've never had any bad experiences. I don't do it as often as others. And I have so many projects in play that I have a hard time being able to set up brew day and make everything happen and then enjoy the beer. I would rather just go and get some good beer somewhere. But the Full Pint has an interesting little article about our mutual friend Brewing. So go and check it out. And then come on back and we can talk. What's your favorite beer? What's your favorite drink? I enjoy a good Guinness. I enjoy a good snakebite. I enjoy a wide array of spirits, and typically like just straight, no mixed drinks unless I want a mixed drink, and then the mixed drink is White Russian or Long Island iced tea. Those are two of my favorites. Although an old fashioned, and I make a particularly sweet old fashioned, and so that's probably my new favorite now. But that's a really good one. All you have to do, look it up, and you'll see the recipe for it. It's really simple, but some Demerara sugar sweetened into a syrup and not just granules. It's really good. It's really, really good. So go and check it out. But go over to the Full Pint and read about this little article from Of the Brew. That's where it was aggregated. It's written and published by thefullpint.com. And they do their own due diligence and then post it on their site. And then my aggregator gets it. Oh, and there's Blazeball again. And that's what this show really does. I go through a sample of the news that ohmTown aggregates. And if you are interested, then feel free to go over and sign up. It's been open to the public since the beginning of the year. Formally, it had soft opens prior as I ramped up functionality, but so on Twitch, you can see Foxhole, and it's a neat MMO war game. If you haven't seen it, basically you take on certain roles and you go around in coordination with others to try and take over areas. Logistics players in MMO wargame Foxhole go on strike. I actually grew up in this area, supply and planning, really, mobilization in the military. As a civilian, I've never been in the military. In fact, they didn't want me. The statement that I was told was that I would end up in jail because I would fight the system that was trying to tear me down to build me back up. That's what they told me. How true that is, I don't know, because it never was manifested. So there you have it. And now I'm too old to go into the military, but A commitment to that sort of realism seems to have had some unintended consequences for Siege Camp, the developers behind the wartime MMO Foxhole. Logistics players in Foxhole engage in a gameplay loop reminiscent of survival games, collecting resources and transporting them to friendly factories to convert them into equipment. Well, apparently how it plays doesn't quite line up with what people want. And perhaps some changes will be inbound. Much like an airdrop, but in code form. We shall see what happens. Hopefully, Foxhole will see some positive changes that the players want, because I'm looking for it. And sorting it by popularity, by the numbers of viewers. I don't really see it. So let me see if I can find it. Yeah, it's not on the page that I've got displayed, so maybe at some point it will pop up, but yeah, I don't see it so far. So I don't know what its rank is, if there is a rank. At any rate, if you haven't seen Foxhole, go and check it out. It's actually quite entertaining to watch. It would probably drive me nuts playing it. But I'm a casual. I'm a filthy casual. I know it's not okay to say that when you're streaming on Twitch. Phil Spencer thinks Sony's rumored Game Pass equivalent is a good idea. So this is an article on PCGamer.com about the Sony version of Game Pass, which is a Microsoft thing. And honestly, whatever a game company wants to do that makes it easier for its customers to consume what is being provided in an easy and responsible manner, and it isn't a ton of nickel and dime again and again and so on, I'm cool with it. So if Sony has enough properties to make Game Pass worthwhile, then so be it. Spin it up and compete, and maybe drive down the prices for Game Pass access as well as Sony's. But in all cases, it always increases. I have yet to ever see anything decline or even really stabilize at a particular price. We're still watching Netflix increase its prices. But it's going to be said, well, we're not really increasing all that often. Yeah, okay. I'm fine with it. Because you kind of have to be. If you're not fine with it, then you bow out. But then you lose all of the benefit that is provided by it, even if you don't think that it deserves, $17 or whatever. And with the balkanization of media online to the point where you have to have multiple apps that are streaming just that material from that particular source, right? You can only get Paramount stuff from Paramount unless it's being broadcast on what is old school television methods or new school like DirecTV. The licensing is there, and you could be watching something one day and then the licensing isn't there and it's gone. That's what happens with Netflix a lot, and Hulu and others. Yeah, it's an interesting time we live in, because 20 years ago we joked about it. We joked that you'll have to pay $5 more to get access to ABC, and suddenly we're doing exactly that to gain access to and CBS and NBC and the Peacock, right? That's what that one is called. And yeah, so we're nickel and dimed. Although you could always get DirecTV's maximum service, which I think is like $150 a month. And then you're back at cable. So what's the difference, really? You still need the cable. So are you interested in this? Go to PC Gamer. You can watch the, or I should say you can read the article, but you can also listen to it. PC Gamer has this neat feature where you can just click on a link and listen to the article itself. And it's saying more than 100 games, including a pile of unlisted stuff for $12.99, right? It's pretty clear that Microsoft wants to maximize the visibility of the program, which, to be fair, is a hell of a good deal. More than 100 games. And that is a heck of a deal. The Game Pass program has been a big success for Microsoft. Yeah, it gets talked about quite a bit on Twitch. Streamers like it. I don't have an Xbox. I don't have a PlayStation. I'm not a console gamer. I'm a PC gamer. But Game Pass goes beyond just the console. So we'll see what happens with this. Maybe competition will cause more product to be put into the various past platforms, and customers will benefit from it. And if you come to this VOD and you want to see it, then go over to ohmTown.com and click on the various links. And you can always chat with me here in this chat. I will keep encouraging. So this next one is the Earth Biogenome Project, and a global effort to map the genomes of all plants, animals, fungi, and other microbial life on Earth. So it's really interesting when you talk to somebody that's in bio, particularly in genetics. There's a lot that we don't know, and there's a lot of what is referred to as junk DNA, except that we don't know really what it is. The more that we understand, the more capable we are as humans to kind of dictate what our future holds, right? So we might find something in a plant that, when tweaked the right way, can be applied to a human being and save a life or make life better in general. That said, we could also create from nothing a plant using the genome, right? If we get to a certain point where we can combine things and literally create the plant DNA, the animals, the fungi, by the way, is a very interesting area of life. Just the idea of getting down to the fundamentals of how something is built, and then the next step is actually building it from nothing. In time, it will happen, but getting to the point where we can actually map out the essentials that make that, whatever it might be, that plant, animal, or fungi, into a string of data. And then we could, if we would have done this with other life earlier before it went extinct, we would potentially have the ability of bringing that back from nothing, once the technology got to the point where we could do it. Now, it can't get into the philosophy or the other aspects of it, just the pure science of it. It's a good, it's a neat thought experiment. I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen. I'm just saying that bringing something back from extinction would be a tremendous boon to humanity. Then again, it could be thought of, well, that's nature, things go extinct. A lot of things go extinct because of human intervention. Might as well intervene and bring it back. But it's a neat article on phys.org. Earth Biogenome Project begins genome sequencing in earnest. Go and read it. Come on back, chat with me about it. The product mindset. If you're looking to fill a position for a product owner in your organization, you may find the following 82 interview questions useful to identify the right candidate. So if you've never dealt with this before, if you are doing a project, you tend to want somebody that's in charge of that project. It's more than a project manager. It's the owner. And I'll click the link to take you to this little tidbit of information. So on my site, all I have is this little bit, right? The questions were derived from my 16 years of practical experience, and that's not me speaking. It's the author of this, who I'll highlight here when we go over to the site. And what my aggregator does is grab just a little tidbit, hopefully enough to tease you into going over to the site. This is dzone.com. And so it goes into greater detail once you go over to the site, because I want you to read it. This is Stefan Wolpers, who wrote this article. So according to and this is about Scrum in particular, apparently. Like I said, I don't read the articles before I bring them up onto my stream, but if you are interested, go over and read it. But according to the Scrum Guide, product owners have a vital role in the value creation process of the Scrum team. The product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team. So what the product owner does really is take possession of the entirety of this product, from its ideation to its completion and launch to market, and babysitting it in the market and making evolutionary and perhaps even revolutionary changes to the product. And focuses on making it meet the requirements, which is basically a spec sheet of what the customer wants, or what the owner of the business wants, or the area manager wants for that product. And so, for instance, I have been the product owner for several things over the years, and one thing was that we were tasked where, well, let's just say in my particular area, I go beyond being tasked with something. I basically go into a business and find what is wrong and right. I do what is referred to as a holistic analysis, and assess what is good and bad, and what needs to change, and what can stay the same, and what is in between and can be enhanced, or something that falls to the edge case and can be chopped off, or whatever. It's basically strategic management. Well, I've gone into an organization, and then I have seen that they were using a multitude of disparate systems that weren't even capable of talking to each other. And so the product was middleware that allowed the systems to talk to each other. And the problem with isolated, siloed information is that it can't be exchanged anywhere else, and it can't benefit the system anywhere else, the enterprise anywhere else. So you have to find a way to make, and here comes a big term that's always said, and then people roll eyes, but you have to create that synergy between various departments so that information isn't just lost in one area of the business, and then recreated in another area. So let's say the most simple form of this would be, you've got a website that allows people to purchase things. If people purchase things and you have to manually print something out and send it to your shipping department, you've got what amounts to siloed operations. You have to stick a human being in there to take that little piece of paper and carry it over to shipping or to area fulfillment areas. Now, you may be thinking, well, big business, they've got this down. Well, yeah, but all big businesses didn't start out as big businesses. They started out as basement operations and then expand beyond that. And there isn't necessarily anybody that's supporting that effort. And that's something that I like to focus on, which is the startup area. Ultra small businesses. Government has a different term for small businesses. Other people have a different perspective of what a small business is. But me, I like working with people who have little to no operational experience, but they are passionate about a business. And I'm happy to talk to people online regarding it. Again, I don't have, I don't know how to describe this. I don't have a dog in this hunt. So if you want to talk about your business operation, then come in to chat. One of the shows that I want to put together is the name of my business, which is Hatch Ideas. And in that 1 hour of time, I'm going to talk about business, startups, enterprise, entrepreneurship, small businesses, things like minimum viable product, some accounting stuff, some legal stuff, all framed appropriately. I'm not your financial advisor. I'm not your accountant. I'm not your attorney. But I am capable of talking about business. In that guise, a product owner would be tasked with doing certain things to make sure that it is effective in producing that product. And there's quite a lot of trust in assigning a product owner, because they are supposed to be the most responsible in pursuing the completion of the product's creation from end to end. In one of my papers that I wrote when I was in college, I treated this type of thing as cradle to grave policy. A person is assigned the task, and if anybody does anything associated with said task, that person needs to know what and when and who and where and why and how, so that they aren't operating in the dark. Well, this article on D-Zone, the product mindset, will go into greater detail. And there's a bunch of questions apparently, but I'm not going to read them all, at least not here on my stream. But happy to talk about it at another date if you are so interested. So come on back again, 6:00, every day of the week, rise or shine. I don't know why I said that, rise or shine. regardless, like the weather could be horrible. I'll be here at 6 o'clock. Tomorrow might be a little iffy as to hitting that 6 o'clock time frame. Sorry, my throat is a little scratchy. Okay, well, anyway, the 6 o'clock time frame from 6 to 7 is when I do my show, and I hope I see more people coming into my chat and showing some interest. Feel free to ask questions. The last article for today is going to be U.S. Airlines officials warn of catastrophic crisis in aviation with new 5G service. Warnings of an impending catastrophic crisis in aviation came in a letter sent to the White House and to others, apparently. U.S. airline chiefs have warned that the introduction of a new 5G service could cause U.S. commerce to, quote, grind to a halt, end quote, due to possibly grounding a significant number of aircraft and might strand tens of thousands of Americans overseas. So if you click this link, it's going to take you to The Guardian. And warnings of impending catastrophic crisis in aviation. Unless our major hubs are cleared to fly, the vast majority of the traveling and shipping public will essentially be grounded. They warned new C-band 5G technology could interfere with critical airplane instruments such as radio altimeters, which they go into detail about what they are. Not great detail, but just a sentence. This means that on a day like yesterday, more than 1,100 flights and 100,000 passengers would be subjected to cancellations, diversions, or delays. And they're talking about this because of 5G. Okay, I'm going to have to read more into this. There was something that happened yesterday. So we'll come back to this. Maybe I can do some more due diligence and see what's going on. Because it doesn't really make sense. Because even if you don't have 5G, you can step down to what amounts to 4G service, right? Less than 5G service. But I'll have to look into it because I haven't heard anything about this yet. I haven't read anything about this yet. But they're saying that things will cause problems with the instrumentation. I'm not sure. I can't really speak to it right now, but the reason why some people have poor performance of their Wi-Fi is because the Wi-Fi is operating at 2.5, and that's the same frequency as microwaves. And if it isn't properly shielded, then those microwaves disrupt your signal. Now, how true that still persists, that's how it was represented over the years. Now I'm not so sure if everything is shielded properly. It doesn't play a role, but I haven't run into it, but I don't know. I guess perhaps my equipment is properly shielded. At any rate, I'll look into this, but what I wanted to bring up here in the last minute of my show is that yesterday there was a professor, and let me see. So the professor, what is his name? Barry Mailer, right? Professor at Ferris State University. So yesterday I had said this guy basically went off the deep end, but to me, it wouldn't have mattered at all until he talked about the performance of students' grades being predetermined. Now, I ended up watching the video because, like I said earlier in this, I don't read the news prior to being on the show because I want to interact with you and read this material at the same time, and talk about what we read. And I want an authentic response. You know, I don't want to pretend to not know. I may not know the minutia of it, but I already know about most of these articles, and their content in some way, right? So I may not know why the specific devices are being said to be impacted by 5G C-band, but I know enough about 5G and I know enough about the equipment that yes, it is possible that it can cause some inconsistencies with results. Well, I had said yesterday that this professor, most people in academia don't have a tenure track to pursue anymore. It basically has died as tenured professors have died. Schools aren't keeping tenure the same way that it used to be around. Now, I can go and do some data analysis and find out just how prevalent tenure positions are. But Barry Mailer, as far as I know, he is Dr. Mailer, not Mr. Hold on a second. Before I keep going. Let's see. I mean, this guy is no slouch. Let me see. He has some really fascinating articles. Genes on Trial, Genetics, Behavior, and the Law. He's a social scientist, which is one of my areas of interest. I'm not remotely. Yeah, he's got a PhD. I don't know why they're calling him Mr. He's earned that title. He's a doctor. He deserves to be called doctor. Anyway, so Dr. Mailer basically made a lot of statements. So he was cussing. He was making statements and called his students vectors of disease. And but the one thing that really tainted the entire experience was that he said that your grades are predetermined based on basically a biblical belief, but it's not. It's a Calvinist belief is what he said, but I don't know if it's really him. I think that he's being jocular. He's being funny. He was joking around, but he pushed it too far, except that I had said, this guy's going to get fired. Well, not only did he say in the video that he's tenure track, but he's also retiring at the end of the year. So in a nutshell, he doesn't care, but he can still be fired for what amounts to an ethical breach, in that he said that the student's performance doesn't matter and that the grades are predetermined. You can't do that in academia, even with a tenure position. I would be surprised if that is upheld as being okay. But the article that I read also said that he said something about it being everything you need to get an A is in the syllabus. I don't recall ever hearing him say that. But it's certainly true. Everything that you need to complete a class is supposed to be enumerated in your syllabus. There is a topical outline. That topical outline allows you to go do everything that you need to complete an assignment. Now, it really depends on which school you go to as well as to how much support you get from a professor. Typically, research colleges, they're not stumbling over themselves trying to help you out. Other non-research schools, non-high in demand schools, right? Niche areas, smaller schools, geographically isolated schools, they may be very supportive and always present, trying to help a student kind of negotiate what they need to do to complete an assignment. But not Dr. Mailer. So he basically said, I don't care if you show up, which is fine. You can do that. You don't grade on attendance. Typically you grade on performance, because a person could be out there doing 100-hour work weeks, not capable of showing up to class, but fully capable of turning in the assignments and passing the tests and everything that's necessary to successfully complete the class, and boom. Why punish them because they can't show up, particularly during COVID? It really shouldn't matter, particularly in the 21st century. Other students would require being on campus and require being highly supported by the professor, simply because they have different needs. And that statement goes well beyond, well, I'm a visual learner, or I am I do better when I'm reading or doing, or which has been demonstrably proven as incorrect. We are a composite of all forms, styles of learning, and not even necessarily. We don't do better because of one specific thing. Fundamentally, we do better as students when we do the task and are engaged actively, and not just coloring by number because we're doing an assignment that says this is step 1, this is step 2. That's that. Well, we can get more into that if necessary, but at any rate, Dr. Mailer, he kind of pushed the limit, and the only thing that's really saving him right now is that he's tenure, wherein you can say and do nearly anything as long as it's not unethical. And that's what I said at the beginning of this. If not for the statement of the claim that your grades are already predetermined by a Calvinist theory, or belief or ideology, yeah, he would be fine. He cussed a lot. But it was a teachable, not really a teachable moment, but it was a style of trying to get people to listen and connect, pardon me, and understand what he was saying. He was using a quote from a movie, and that quote led into what plagiarism is. And so he was using that as a vehicle, including the cussing and everything else. But everything else was wrapped in this bookend of kind of over the top. But it's gone viral. And when things go viral, either it turns out being positive or it turns out being a hot mess that lands you in trouble. So we'll see what happens with Mailer, Dr. Mailer. So he got his PhD in 1988, and he's 74 today. So, or not today, now he's 74. So good luck, Dr. Mailer. I wish you well. You have an interesting style of presentation. And I'm sure your other videos, which I haven't seen yet, are equally the embodiment of your personality. How about that? So, okay, with that, I'm a little bit over 20 minutes, actually. And I'll see you tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern. And hopefully I'll get some more people in chat that are willing to chat with me. That would be great. Come on, come and talk to me. Would really appreciate it. And we'll see you tomorrow.